Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my channel Jahangir'S Science School. Today I am going to discuss about distance time graph and velocity time graph. First, distance time graph. Distance time graph. Time graph. Remember, when we want to plot a graph, there are two axes. One is x-axis, horizontal axis, another is y-axis or vertical axis. Remember, when we plot a graph in x-axis, we should put independent variable. Variable. What is independent variable? The physical quantity which we decide to change for an experiment is called independent variable. Dependent variable in y-axis. Dependent variable, the quantity which we want to investigate or measure for any experimental purpose is called dependent variable. So dependent variable. In distance time graph, time is independent. So remember, when we plot a graph, distance time graph, time in x-axis, time slash unit second s, and in vertical axis it is distance, unit is meter. So for distance time graph, time in x-axis or horizontal axis and distance in y-axis, vertical axis. If distance time graph is a straight line, then it shows the object moves with uniform speed. And the gradient, so the object moves with uniform speed. Or we can also write constant speed. So gradient of the graph represent amount of speed. So gradient, if the gradient is less steep, then it shows the object moves with less uniform speed, and if the gradient is higher, say A and B, the distance time graph for two car A and car B. So from this distance time graph, it is observed that speed of the car A is less than the speed of the car B. So gradient, remember the gradient of the distance time graph represent speed. So one thing remember, so gradient of the distance time graph equal to speed. So how we can calculate gradient? Say there is a distance time graph, time in second and distance in meter. Say this one is a distance time graph. Time 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second, 0. And here distance 5 meter, 10 meter. Say here it is a distance time graph. Say here it is a distance time graph. Distance time graph distance time graph. So how we can calculate gradient? Remember, gradient equal to rise by run. Rise by run. What is the meaning of rise? Here rise in vertical axis, here it is distance. So rise is 10 meter and run is 4 second. So after calculation we get the speed. After calculation we get the speed. So by using calculator, so 10 divided by 4, so correct answer is 2.5. So speed here 2.5, unit is meter per second. So now if the distance time graph is a curved one like this. So here time in x-axis and distance in y-axis. Distance meter. So figure 2 non-uniform from increasing speed. Non-uniform because the distance time graph is a curved one, and increasing speed because the gradient of the distance time graph increases with time. So because the gradient of the graph increases with time. So if the graph is a curved one, then it is non-uniform speed. If the gradient of the graph increases with time, then it is increasing speed. Now if the distance time graph, here it is time in second, here distance in meter, is a straight line horizontal with time axis, then it, at rest or stationary, because look at the graph here, distance remains same. If any object does not change its position with surrounding environment with time, then it is said to be object at rest. So if the distance time graph is horizontal with time axis, then it shows the object is stationary. Here gradient is 0. Gradient of the graph is 0. Remember, if the distance time graph has 0 gradient, then it shows the object is stationary. Now if the distance time graph is like that, then tell me what type of motion represented by this graph. Figure 4, non-uniform speed, because it is curved one. Non-uniform speed, uniform speed, because the graph is a curved one. But remember, it is decreasing speed. Why decreasing speed? Because the gradient of the graph decreases with time. Remember, look at the graph. here initially gradient is higher, then gradually gradient decreases with time. Initially gradient is higher, then gradient decreases, finally gradient decreases most. That's why non-uniform speed non-uniform decreasing speed. Now if a distance time graph is like that, then tell me what type of motion represented from this graph. Tell me what type of motion. So moving backward with constant speed. Moving backward with constant speed. Moving backward with constant speed. Why moving backward? Because distance decreases with time. That means the object returns to its original position. That's why here if the distance time graph is downwards, so moving backward with constant speed. Why constant speed? Because gradient is remain same, constant. So moving backward with constant speed. Now if distance time graph is curved one like this, so moving backward with decreasing speed. So moving backward with decreasing speed. Moving backward with decreasing speed. On the other hand, if the graph is like that, so distance moving backward with increasing speed. Moving backward with increasing speed. Moving backward with increasing speed. Why increasing speed? Because the gradient of the graph increases with time. Moving backward. So this is for distance time graph. All for distance time graph. Thank you for watching my video. If you like my video, subscribe my channel and press the bell button.